He tried to end her in the middle of a signature deal. One smile and a chair pulled neatly from beneath her. But the room did not belong to him. In the hush of a Dallas boardroom, Maya answered with structure, not fury. The clause that protected real work, the numbers that refused to lie, the patience that outlasted noise. Tonight, follow the quiet turn that undid a public humiliation, and watch how clarity, not vengeance, turned a closed door into a contract. The joke lands like a dull coin on a marble floor. Ethan Cole glides in 30 seconds late, offers a grin that asks for forgiveness without earning it, and says they will take this merger to the moon. No one in the room laughs. Across the long walnut table, Avery Rhodes, Chief Operating Officer of Atlas Meridian Logistics, keeps his pen poised above a legal pad, as if the silence itself is a line he intends to underline. Maya Chen does not turn to look at Ethan. She holds Avery's gaze and lets the quiet do what it is made to do. "Thank you for your time," Maya says, steady and warm. "Before we review pricing, I want to confirm the intent behind your autonomy clause. Regional operators retain day-to-day decision rights. Headquarters provides analytics, not commands." Avery nods once. "That is the spirit," he replies. "The word spirit matters here. They are in Dallas, 30 minutes past noon, and the room carries that slow, deliberate cadence of Texas business, a respect for local lanes and the people who keep them open." Maya breathes, counts to 2, and continues. "Your Fort Worth Yard trial reduced night shift dwell by 12.6% in week 3. The Arlington hub improved on-time arrivals by 9% after we adjusted the reroute thresholds. These results assume local control stays intact. That is why the clause remains as written." She does not add what she has already learned in 3 months of workshops, ride-alongs, and yard huddles. Trust travels the shortest distance when the person who owns the shift also owns the call. She lets the data say it for her. Ethan leans forward. "We have leverage," he announces, bright and loud. "We can centralize operations in week 1, capture the synergies on day 1, show the board immediate savings." The temperature shifts. Avery's pen taps once. He does not counter. He turns to his chief of staff and murmurs, "Please pull the pilot metrics from Fort Worth." He writes something small on the pad. The sound of the room narrows. Maya does not rush to fill it. She has a sentence she repeats to herself before high-stakes meetings, a sentence that has saved more deals than any slide deck. Silence is not retreat, it is traction. Silence is not retreat, it is traction, she thinks, the words crossing her mind, clean as a plumb line. "Let us take a brief break," Maya says. 10 minutes. I will reconfirm roles on our side and return with a single voice. Avery closes his pad. That would be wise. In the hallway, beyond the framed aerial photographs of distribution yards, Ethan's phone buzzes. He answers before the second ring. "Cole," a voice says, low and clipped, "the chief financial officer. Bridge loan, 90 days. The board wants savings on this quarter's call. Centralization is the fastest line. I need a narrative by end of week." Ethan glances at Maya. "Understood," he says. He ends the call and pockets the pressure like a smooth stone. He is not only vain, he is cornered by numbers he built. His bonus depends on them. His reputation does too. In the breakout room, Maya opens a slim folder. "Keep the autonomy clause," she says. "Add phased control gates at day 30, day 90, and day 180. Each gate requires joint sign-off, and each sign-off is tied to actual metrics. That preserves what matters to Atlas Meridian and gives you a way to speak to the board without empty promises." Ethan smiles the way a man smiles when he hears music he refuses to learn. "I am leading strategy now," he says. "Day 1 centralization is the strategy." "Day 1 centralization risks the relationship," Maya replies. Her tone is even. "We have evidence and we have trust. We do not have the right to bulldoze either." He looks at his phone. The screen reflects in his eyes. A decision forms. His thumb moves. The message is already drafted. He scheduled it to hold just behind his teeth. With 3 taps, he sends the company-wide reorganization memo. "Effective this week, integration leadership will be consolidated under strategy." The sentence is clean, shapeless, and final. It does not name Maya. It does not need to. It lowers her role to liaison without using the word. Maya watches the air move between them. She feels nothing in particular, just the calm after a glass cracks, but does not shatter. Then let us be transparent on the record, she says. Atlas Meridian deserves clarity. They return to the conference room. Phones vibrate along the table like a soft percussion line. The memo has arrived. Heads lower to screens and lift again toward Maya. Avery studies her face, not Ethan's. Who is accountable for Go Live? He asks. I am, Ethan answers quickly. I will take it from here. Maya does not translate those words. She turns to Avery and his team and speaks in a voice shaped by the last weeks of yard visits, operator briefings, and long drives that end at diner coffee. We will take 5 more minutes to recalibrate expectations. When we return, we will confirm leadership and the plan for your autonomy clause. Avery's mouth tilts toward approval. That would be wise. They step out again, and as the door eases shut, Maya's phone lights with a calendar invite from Human Resources. Subject, discuss role realignment, this afternoon. She stares at the words. They do not sting. They confirm. Do you intend to remove me from the deal, or only to move my title on paper? She asks Ethan. I intend to close the deal, he replies. The rest is process. Process is what makes a deal endure, she says, or fail. He does not answer. He is already walking back into the room, into the version of the future he believes he can force into place. Maya remains in the hall for a measured breath. She thinks of the Fort Worth Yard night shift, the supervisor with the folded arms who unfolded them after she listened to his sequence for loading door 7. She thinks of the Arlington reroute that worked because the decision authority stayed on the floor, not on a dashboard 2 states away. She thinks of Avery and the way his pen stopped when data lined up with respect. The meeting resumes. Ethan leads with a proposal to centralize day 1. He talks about dashboards and cost curves and a board that expects velocity. Avery listens without interrupting. He turns to Maya. Your pilot, he says. What is the on-time gain if autonomy remains in place through day 90? 9% at Arlington, with variance narrowing after week 2. It's sustainable if local supervisors retain line authority over reroutes. We'll keep headquarters analytics, but not overrides. Avery looks between them. I am pausing joint talks, he says, until I understand who is accountable on day 30. He gathers his notes. He rises. He leaves the room with a column that belongs to people who decide things for a living. Maya's phone hums again. The HR invite sits on the lock screen, quiet and official. She lifts it, feels the weight of it like a paperweight that wants to become a stone. She does not answer it yet. She looks at the door Avery used, and then at the table where she has spent 11 months building a path that didn't ask anyone to kneel. She sits. She aligns her pen with the edge of her notebook. She imagines a room where the clause that protects local judgment is not a concession, but a design. She imagines a contract that tells the truth about how work flows when people who do it are trusted to lead it. If the room changes, change the room, she thinks. She stands. Her phone lights one more time. The subject line holds steady. Discuss role realignment. She lets the screen fall dark. If the room changes, change the room, she says under her breath, and walks to the door. They return to the table at the stroke of the hour. The room has the careful order of a stage that has seen many performances and few honest endings. Ethan Cole sits at the head as if it were his by charter, hands folded, jaw set. Maya Chen takes her place at the side nearest Avery Rhodes, close enough to read his notes if she leaned, far enough to let him decide whether trust has a seat today. Ethan begins without preface. Day 1, centralization, he says, voice bright and unwavering. We migrate dispatch authority to Northbridge Command and lock in savings this quarter. The board receives proof of velocity, and Atlas Meridian receives a unified operating model. Avery listens with his pen still. When Ethan finishes, Avery turns slightly, angling his shoulders toward Maya. Before we speak in models, he says, I want to hear about work. Maya holds his gaze. Fort Worth night shift dwell dropped 12.6% in week 3 when local supervisors retained reroute authority, she says.
Arlington on-time arrivals improved by 9% after we raised the threshold for artificial intelligence-assisted reroutes in weather variants. The gains held only when we kept the decision close to the work. What is the trend line, Avery asks, when a central dashboard overrides local judgment in the first week? Performance spikes for 3 days, then falls below baseline by day 10. Operators stop trusting this system. They work around it. The data looks tidy and the reality leaks. Ethan leans forward. The reality is cost, he says. Centralization saves $14 million in year 1. That is the narrative the board expects. Avery does not argue. He shifts to a sequence of questions that has the precision of a checklist worn smooth by use. Line how windows, union hours, weather variance by corridor. If day 1 centralization fails in a storm week, who holds the freight on the floor and who apologizes to the shipper on Monday morning? Ethan looks to the screen for help that is not there. We will design escalation paths, he says. You will need more than paths, Avery answers. He turns to Maya. Who ran the graveyard huddles in Fort Worth? Supervisor Reyes. Door 7, bottleneck. He changed the loading sequence, not the schedule, and cut the delay by 30 minutes per trailer. He owns the shift. He must own the call. Avery gives a small nod. You have done the trench work, Miss Chen. Ethan smiles a smile that looks like glass. And now we do the leadership work, he says. They break for 10 minutes. Outside the room, the corridor holds the low hum of a building intent on appearing calm. Maya's phone rings, human resources. She takes the call in a quiet corner with a view of parking stripes and a cloudless sky. Miss Chen, the representative says, voice gentle in the way of people trained to deliver decisions. I am calling to inform you that as part of our restructuring roadmap, your current role is slated to sunset. There is no termination at this time. We will ask you to transition responsibilities over the next several weeks. Please confirm the exit documents, non-disclosure agreement, non-compete status, and any post-change intellectual property assignment. There is a delay long enough to be meaningful. Those documents are pending, the representative says. I see a thread regarding a title adjustment filed 6 weeks ago. It is open. Thank you, Maya says. She ends the call and stands for a moment with the phone in her hand, feeling both the weight of it and the quiet that follows a truth that chooses not to hide. Back at the table, Avery requests a brief side discussion with Maya in a smaller room adjacent to the conference floor. Ethan rises to follow. Avery lifts a palm with the calm authority of a man who signs checks measured in years. I need to understand, he says. Who will be accountable on day 30? 2 people in one doorway is a crowd. Ethan stops. The door closes. The side room is plain. A table, 2 chairs, a pitcher of water. Maya sits with her back to the glass so that the reflection shows her face, not the hallway behind her. I will be direct, Avery says. If Northbridge cannot honor the autonomy clause, I must know whether there is a path that preserves what we built in the pilots. If there is not, I will reopen the process and accept the cost of delay. Maya slides a single sheet across the table. The paper is clean, the language spare. A draft only, Maya says. MC Stratworks, a Delaware limited liability company. Scope unchanged, success fee of 10% upon execution, autonomy preserved with control gates at day 30, day 90, and day 180. Headquarters analytics without overrides. I will not move forward unless Northbridge declines to meet the same terms. I will not solicit. I will not take what is not mine. He reads without hurry. He lingers on the clause that assigns intellectual property only to the specific deliverables. You have thought this through, he says. I live in California. Non-compete agreements are generally not enforceable there. Northbridge has not completed exit paperwork. I am free to work, provided I protect proprietary materials and act within the lines. I will not cross them. He folds the sheet once, then opens it again, as if testing whether the draft holds its shape after a crease. I will verify with counsel, he says, but this is the kind of clarity work recognizes. Across the hall, Ethan calls the chief financial officer. If we centralize on day 1, we hit 14 million in synergy. The synergy sounded tired in his mouth. The board needs that in the deck. Not if Atlas Meridian walks. Savings without a client is arithmetic in the air. Ethan looks through the glass at the closed door of the side room. The hallway light gives his reflection a halo he has not earned. Maya's phone vibrates. A new email, sender concealed behind a generic address and a one-line subject. She opens it. The message is short. Legal is drafting a backdated addendum to bind you. Watch for a press note. She reads it twice. It does not frighten her. It clarifies the ground. She packages a set of files and sends them through an encrypted channel to an independent attorney, Alina Brooks. The archive contains the 6-week tread about her title adjustment, the HR ticket that remains pending, and a set of sanitized notes showing that Ethan insisted on managing her exit outside standard process. The phone rings a minute later. They can posture in the press, Alina says, but discovery will vaporize a backdated addendum. You have receipts, you have clean lines. Hold your center. I intend to, Maya says. When they reconvene, Avery's expression is composed, but the room feels thinner, as if the air itself has been asked to wait outside. He addresses both of them with equal courtesy. We will pause joint talks, he says, until accountability is clear. I need one name for day 30 and a plan that honors the autonomy clause as tested. When you're ready, call me. He hands a card to Maya, an ordinary rectangle of stock that suddenly feels like a door key. If your status changes by the end of the week, I would like to continue this in a smaller room. Ethan opens his mouth to argue, then thinks better of it. The meeting ends with the gentlest of sounds. Chairs pushed in, pens capped, a pitcher settling on a tray. When the door closes, the noise seems larger than it is. In the corridor, a junior associate from Atlas Meridian passes with a tablet held close to his chest. The screen glows with the headline of a trade brief. It reads, Atlas Meridian halts integration talks with Northbridge. Sources cite leadership confusion. The associate does not notice Maya as he walks by. He has the look of a person who has just seen a forecast change without a storm. Maya steps into the quiet of an empty stairwell and lets her hand rest on the cool railing. She feels the ache of held breath in her ribs, and beneath it something steadier, something that does not depend on a title or a memo or a chair at a certain end of a certain table. She thinks of the word she offered in part 1 of this day, the word that has kept her from speaking when silence moves the room. Traction.
When she returns to her car, the afternoon light has shifted to gold along the lines of the lot. Her phone buzzes again, a market alert. Northbridge shares are down 6% on low volume. The slope is not steep, but it is visible. A small red mark on a chart that prefers the color of comfort. Across town, in a glass office that overlooks a freeway that never sleeps, Ethan watches the same line fall. He stands very still, as if motion would make the graph move faster. The trade brief is open on his second monitor, its headline indifferent and exact. His reflection meets his eyes in the glass. He speaks so quietly that the room almost refuses to carry the words. We finish this my way. Morning settles over Deep Ellum with a pale light that makes the brick walls look newly honest. Maya Chen sits in a corner booth with a mug that has gone warm, not hot. On her phone, a press statement from Northbridge speaks in careful phrases about global restructuring and future excellence. The sentences are smooth and empty, like stones polished by water that no longer runs. She does not forward it. She does not post a comment. She opens her calendar and sends a short note to Alina Brooks, her attorney, to confirm the legal clean room and the intellectual property carve-outs they had outlined last night. The message reads like a list of doors that will remain open because they were never properly closed. Across town, in a glass office that overlooks a steady river of traffic, Avery Rhodes gathers his leadership team and the general counsel of Atlas Meridian Logistics. The conference table is large, but the conversation is close. Avery lays out a brief, 3 paths written in a neat hand that wastes no ink. Option 1, he says, continue with Northbridge if they affirm the autonomy clause and name a single accountable leader. Probability is low. Option 2, engage MC Stratworks as an independent advisor with a success fee and time-boxed milestones. Option 3, reopen the process. The delay cost is high. He lets the silence tell him what he already knows. Every day without a clear path costs money, confidence, and time. We do not pay for delay, he says. Heads around the table nod. The general counsel marks a check beside option 2. The boardroom at Northbridge does not have the heat of Dallas in June, but it has the kind of pressure that makes people loosen their collars when they think no one is watching. Martin Graves, a longtime investor whose patience is famous and not infinite, sits with a leather folder that has the weight of evidence. Ethan Cole stands at the end of the table with a deck that promises momentum. The promises look like slanted lines and rising bars. They do not look like people. Before Ethan can begin, Martin opens the folder and places a printout in the center of the table. "This is your email," he says. "You wrote that you would handle Maya Chen's exit personally. No human resources oversight. No legal oversight. You asked that access be cut and that paperwork follow." Ethan's jaw tightens. "We needed speed," he says. "She is dismantling us from outside." "Or you left the door open," Martin replies. He turns to the general counsel. "Please read the status." The general counsel does not look dramatic. He looks exact. No executed non-disclosure agreement tied to a separation. No non-compete. No post-employment intellectual property addendum. The system shows a title adjustment thread that remains open. The words do not thunder. They land with the quiet finality of a stamp that cannot be lifted. A journalist at Business Ledger receives a tip sheet that does not sneer and does not shout. The story that publishes 2 hours later is measured and cold. Integration stalls at Northbridge. Governance or leadership? It asks. Anonymous sources describe a process that drifted from policy at the moment it most needed the safety of policy. The article carries no adjectives that burn. It carries dates and copies of memos and a timeline that refuses to bend. By the closing bell the next day, Northbridge shares are down 9%. It is not a collapse. It is a judgment. The board meets again and chooses the sentence that institutions use when they wish to step back without admitting that they stepped forward. Ethan Cole is placed on administrative leave pending review. The announcement is 1 page. His name appears in the 3rd paragraph after a phrase about commitment to stakeholders. At noon, the sun lays an honest square of light across the oak table in Atlas Meridian's Dallas headquarters. Maya sits across from Avery with a red-line draft that contains no ornaments. She touches 3 clauses with the tip of her pen as if they were stones that must be tested before a crossing. First, she says, the autonomy clause remains in place. We add control gates at day 30, day 90, and day 180. Each gate requires joint sign-off. Second, the artificial intelligence licensing is hybrid. For time-critical lanes, we keep on-premises processing. Third, the success fee is 10%, payable only upon execution and upon meeting Phase 1 key performance indicators. Avery reads each change. He slows at the places where caution lives and nods at the places where speed can be made safe. This is how you remove risk from velocity, he says. The general counsel turns the pages and pauses at the quiet guardrails that matter most. The agreement is with MC Stratworks, a Delaware limited liability company. Confidentiality is mutual. Intellectual property is assigned only to defined deliverables. A modest no-poach period is included to make clear that this is not a raid on a client list, but a contract to build a system that stands without drama. I want to be precise, Maya says. I will not solicit from Northbridge. I will not move any proprietary materials. We will build new work on new ground. What I offer is not a grudge. It is a structure. Avery signs. His pen does not scrape. It moves with the steady ease of a decision that has already been made in the mind and is now simply being written in a hand. What follows does not require spectacle. Northbridge schedules client reassurance calls. Many lines ring, many voicemails are left, and many accounts remain quiet. The silence is not hostile. It is practical. People who move freight do not like uncertainty, and they do not reward it. A human resources analyst at Northbridge updates a field in a system that does not care about feelings. Separated. Paperwork pending, the line reads, under Maya's name. A phrase that has sat there for 6 weeks, like a small sign someone forgot to take down. The analyst does not know that the accuracy of that field has already bent a story. In an elevator that hums as softly as a confession, Ethan reads the notice of his leave on a company tablet. The floor does not move for a long moment. He sees his reflection in the metal and recognizes a man who believed he could force time to obey him. He closes his eyes and opens them again. The doors part, and the hallway welcomes him with a blankness that feels like weather after a storm has passed somewhere else. Evening folds itself over downtown Dallas in a gradient of copper and blue. On a rooftop bar with a clean view of the I-30, Maya stands with a glass of water that catches the last light. Her assistant brings an iPad with a market chart that glows in restless red. She looks at it for one quiet beat and then turns the screen dark with a touch. This is not a scorched earth. It is clean air. She calls Avery. Week 1. We start in the Fort Worth yard. No bottlenecks. Local supervisors hold line authority. Headquarters provides analytics. We will not confuse speed with haste. Agreed. Day 30, we review together. The call ends without flourish. Work waits, and it is the kind of work that respects honesty and sequence. Later, at her desk, an email arrives at the address of MC Stratworks. The subject line reads like a small invitation that understands its size. Helios Freight. Heard you turned chaos into cadence. Coffee next week? She opens her calendar and sets a meeting for Tuesday at 9 o'clock. She sends a reply with 2 sentences and a signature that contains no title and no flourish. When she closes the laptop, the room is quiet enough to hear the air move. Her hands rest on the cover for a long second, as if feeling whether the surface will hold. She speaks aloud so that the words shape the space that will carry her forward.
I do not chase rooms anymore, she says. I build them. The story ends where clarity begins. In the quiet, after the headlines fade, Maya stands in a room that she built, with measured words, tested clauses, and the slow, deliberate courage of someone who chose steadiness over spectacle. The executive who tried to define her by a memo has become a footnote in a file marked "process failure," while the work she shaped now moves forward with clean lines and honest milestones. It is not a victory that shouts. It is a victory that breathes. What should we carry from her path? First, that silence can be strength when it serves understanding, not fear. In a world that rewards speed, the instinct to pause, to listen, and to name the stakes with precision is not weakness. It is how real decisions are made. Second, that structure is a form of respect. Autonomy was not a bargaining chip. It was a design that honored the people closest to the work. When leaders forget that, systems fray, trust evaporates, and numbers tell a story that looks like progress and feels like loss. Third, that ethics and clarity walk together. Maya did not poach. She did not steal. She protected boundaries and built new value on new ground. The pressure to win by any means is loud, but the discipline to win by the right means endures. That is why doors opened. That is why her name became a promise rather than a rumor. There is also a lesson for anyone who has ever sat in a room and felt their voice pushed to the edge. Your value is not the volume of a title or the seat you are offered. It is the weight of your preparation, the honesty of your methods, and the steadiness of your judgment when the room tilts. You will know you are ready when the plan in your hands can survive the light of a calm question. As we close, I want to hear from you. Which moment in Maya's journey stayed with you? Was it the decision to defend the autonomy clause? Was it the choice to refuse a shortcut? Or was it the quiet conviction in the final line? I do not chase rooms anymore. I build them. Share your reflections below. Your stories often become the spark for the next one. If this chapter spoke to you, consider subscribing. Here we follow the fault lines of power, the small decisions that change outcomes, and the craft of navigating complexity with integrity. New stories are on the way. Until then, hold to your standards, protect your time, and remember, clarity is not revenge. It is the clean air that lets you begin again.